This week on Rockstar Superhero. When Wanderer came into my life recently, I became keenly aware that the truest aspects of the DIY ethos knew no bounds. Speaking today with guitarist Brent Ericson, I was reminded that this podcast/reviewer still knows very little about the hardcore music scene and its bands, outside of loving what I'm hearing. Our conversation opened up a lot of new avenues for me, and I'm excited to pursue the journey of listening to all of Brent's references. I'll probably recommend you do the same right now. Wanderer's new album is inspiring. So much so that my own daughter listened to Liberation from A Brutalist Existence, their latest album, and asked me if she could draw an animation to the music and gift it to the band. I told her that other artists have been equally motivated by their music, and she laughed and said, "Well, of course, Dad. It's really awesome." That's probably all you need to know about Wanderer. They inspire while they break your ear canals. This is my interview with Brent Ericson, and this is Wanderer on the Rockstar Superhero Podcast. Flat out, dude. Brent, talking to you makes me so happy today, and we've just started because I basically have a big old man crush on your band, you know? And
I appreciate that.
Yeah, the music, man. I mean, I feel like I need to talk to a psychologist to figure out what's going on with my id. But, I mean, look, let's start with the simplistics, man, before we get to the new material. How much has been from the northern U.S., you know, where you're in this cold Midwestern atmosphere, both, you know, physically, you know, and figuratively, has that affected the musical direction and growth of you and the band?
Yeah, I mean, I would, definitely on both fronts. I know personally for me, I've taken a lot of, you know, like there's fewer regional, like local band, you know, specifically, I guess, local Minneapolis bands that have ever like quote unquote made it, you know, as like a heavy band, you know, like hardcore metal, whatever. And like, there's really a handful that, you know, stuck out to me as, you know, like Disembodied and Martyr AD are two big ones that, you know, on the hardcore side of things, that they're really the only like metalcore, hardcore kind of bands that really got out there, besides say like Holding On, or like Husker Du is really like the last like hardcore band that like everyone knows, you know, that, you know, is into the music. Yeah. That's from Minneapolis. And like, that's, you know, like there was some Loudwire, some, you know, publication like that came out with like a, you know, best hardcore band from every state kind of thing. And Husker Du was that one. They've been a band for 40 years.
Forever.
So it's just like, there obviously hasn't been someone around since then that's made a big enough impression to catch that, you know, those people's attention. So that, you know, that seeing that kind of thing has always been, you know, motivating, I guess. You know, like really sticking by the, you know, like our friends' bands and like our band, you know, just like really, you know, having the confidence, I guess, to like keep going out there and touring and stuff like that. And, you know, people are confused or kind of weirded out when we say that we're from Minneapolis. It's very, like, for a long time, there's very few bands that, you know, were heavy that were going out and like touring, you know, on a DIY kind of scale. And then like we started going out there, and we started like, you know, our friends started going out, and then it just kind of, you know, like we started hearing from people like, oh, you guys are like, I saw the guys from Minneapolis, didn't even listen to the music and came to the show because I know that Minneapolis bands are so good.
Wow.
And like that's been, you know, that kind of stuff is even more motivating, because then we just got to like, you know, we got to keep up that reputation for our city. So, you know, like, I guess motivationally, it's been very, you know, kind of inspirational, I guess, or like it's, you know, being where we're from, you know, there's no like, there's not a huge scene. Like, yeah, we do, we've been around for a while. We've got people that like us and come to our shows and stuff, but, compared to the East Coast or the West Coast, it's nothing.
Right.
They're having local shows with like, there was a local show that we had that was really great. We didn't play, but it was like almost 200 people paid, which is, that's great.
That's a big show. Yeah.
Yeah. That that's a lot of people, but then we see stuff, on social media from, places like the Bay Area and like the East Coast and stuff like that, where they're getting like 2,000 people to one show, and they're all bands from that area, which I mean, that's it, that's inspiring because we want to be able to, get that many people out, but it's also kind of like, like it's kind of disappointing at the same time, but like, it's that same kind of feeling like that sucks that we can't have that, but let's make it happen kind of thing.
Yeah. Dude, I'm telling you though, there's so much to unpack in what you just said. I mean, you literally have my mind swirling all these thoughts because I mean, you're correct from an outsider. So I'm from near Seattle. Okay. I live out in the mountains, but I'm basically in Seattle.
Yeah.
And so, I'm very familiar with, various hardcore / punk scenes around the country, right? You said the Bay Area, we're talking DC, we're talking Dallas, we're talking Baltimore, right? And then a few, spotty stuff in the middle. And you guys do feel, if you will, like a DC band, if there's such a thing as like classifying you. But I do love the fact that it's a lot like sports, man. You have your hometown heroes. And you guys are that thing. I mean, Minneapolis has been known, as you well know, for being sort of the birthplace of so many so many sort of Black influence things over the, the last 45, 50 years. Oh. And now it's evolving into this more diverse platform, if you will, but I just love that you're in the middle of it. I mean, I think it's rad. But I actually wanted to ask you this, because I think this really plays a lot into who you guys are specifically. And it seems to me, I've only been to Minneapolis 2 times, and both times were in the summer. So I'm well familiar with like the mosquitoes and whatnot, but I've never been there in the winter time when I know it has to be miserable.
Yeah.
And I think I liken that to Seattle, because there's something about the miserable winter that gets the band to go into the basement and craft something that speaks to where they're at in their head right now, because they don't get to go outside and exercise. They got to burn it off in here. Yep. And why not write about this shit that you live in?
Yeah.
Am I on it?
Yeah. I mean, I think, every member of the band as of right now grew up in Minnesota. Like I grew up in like just outside Minneapolis, same with Jack, same with Dan. Mono grew up in St. Paul. So, that kind of winter thing, we've never really been scared of touring in the winter, because it's not like we're leaving somewhere where it's just, you don't have to think about driving.
Right.
Going into some place where there's mountains and snow and ice and all that kind of stuff. Like we get to go somewhere else where there's none of that, which is nice.
Yeah.
Getting to choose, like that kind of just being, after, Christmas time, New Year's kind of thing. And then it's still dreadfully cold for 3 or 4 months.
Right.
It just sucks. It really blows. And it definitely changes how you interact with the world. And then, by extension, how we go about practicing, or how, like if, instead of going out and, going on a run or something like that, I'll stay home and play guitar, there's that kind of thing really, it's not conscious, and it's harder to see, as someone who grew up in Minnesota, is like used to the cold. And, I don't do as much like outdoors, winter sports kind of stuff, but winter was my favorite season for a very long time, because I, snowboarded and, did like outdoor, winter outdoor stuff. And it just, that was the time to do it. So it was very exciting.
Right.
Now, not so much with like having a car and a house and stuff like that. So
yeah. It's interesting too, because it's not like you guys don't know how to drive in the snow. It's also. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's definitely like people in Minnesota like aren't the greatest drivers, but like it's if there were those kind of similar conditions elsewhere, like outside the Midwest,
Right.
outside like the northern kind of area of the country, it would destroy whole cities. Like, like Atlanta, they get 5 or half an inch of snow and they're locked down for a week.
Oh yeah, we shut down here a day before any snow is in the forecast.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to fall. It just has to threaten a fall, and they'll shut down school. They'll do a 2-hour late just because of it. It's crazy. But we live on big freaking hills, so
yeah, exactly.
So it makes sense. I mean, do you want to drive a bus down a 35-degree angle? No, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, yeah.
It's interesting too because I just want to hit on one more thing. This whole COVID thing.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have been living in a sense when you're in, again, going back to the Minnesota winters, it's like you've been in COVID your whole life. You've been indoors, you've been away from others. And yet I would imagine that it's kind of ramped it up all the more for you guys and said, okay, sit down, hunker down, get in your cave, write more material, get more into the deeper parts of your psyche and talk about the things that are affecting you, because now the world understands you more. Like you guys have been primed for this moment, Brent, because people are waiting for somebody to speak for them. That's human nature. That's what music does, right? And all of a sudden Wanderer pops up and it's freaking monstrous. And it's like you've met the rubber with the road, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like it's definitely, bands from other areas. Like I've always appreciated when, bands like rep where they're from in, like just the way that the music comes across. Like
right.
The one band that I can think of right at the top of my head is a newer band called Drain they're from like the Bay Area, and they sound like they're from the Bay Area.
That's
like
awesome.
If I heard them, I wouldn't be, I would be like, this band is probably from California somewhere.
Interesting.
And it's just, like having that kind of come across is, it's not easy to do because it's just kind of what comes out of you. It's not necessarily something that is, quantifiable. But, like having that, kind of, mini quarantines kind of thing, in the winter where we're, not going out as much, not, doing that kind of thing is definitely a, I think it's like a boon at this point, I guess. Like, I feel like there has been, since the release of this album, I think more people have, it's been put in front of more people. And I think more people are, kind of, getting where we're coming from, I guess, figuratively and literally.
Yeah. I'll tell you, dude. Well, look, here I am, right? We're talking, and I would have never known about you had it not been for the right timing. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say I wouldn't have known about you. I love your type of music, so I probably would have discovered you. But yeah, you have to hit a certain echelon before people really start paying attention, sadly. Like the band you just mentioned, Drain, I'm not familiar with them. And it doesn't mean I don't care. It just means there's so much content anymore. Yeah. And unless you basically kill somebody online and somebody videotapes it, nobody knows who the hell anyone is.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, but
there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, I want to do my part, man. I think it's a big deal about doing as much promo for something you love because people pay attention. If you have a voice, you might as well get people to pay attention,
Yeah, even if it's just, you're like I used to do a radio show in college where I just really liked doing it. Like the whole thing, I had like a concept behind it where I would do like, I think it was just called Heavy and Soft, where I'd play like a really heavy song and then a really not heavy song, and just that was back to back to back the whole time.
Right.
I think my most popular show was like 5 listeners, maybe.
That's awesome.
But, I still liked it enough to do it, and it was more about like just seeing what I could do with that kind of format and just like showing the people that are, it's like if there's even one person in the room that is interested enough to be there and pay attention to what you're doing or saying,
right?
Like it's worth doing that. Like we've played shows to 3 people, and 2 of those people have become friends, since that like that they've supported us, we've supported them, we've brought their bands out, to Minneapolis. We've gone back and had better shows there. It really, like, that's kind of the whole idea of going out there and, like you were saying earlier, like getting, speaking for, like having a voice for someone else, or like, having that connection through the art is, if that's worth it to you, then like going out and playing to even just that one person in that room is worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. So true, brother. I have so many questions for you, but one that popped into my head the second I saw your promo material was your lyric sheet. Okay. And I'm curious. I mean, you're a lot younger than me, so this may or may not speak to you, but I think it does. The fanzine world, the culture of the fanzine, the old school DIY, everything is lo-fi. You guys seem very lo-fi to me. There's an independent, self-styled, sort of almost overt thumb your nose at society vibe, and it totally fits. And I wonder where that comes from. Is it just out of necessity? Like, I don't know anybody that has a ton of money to do marketing, but at the same token, if you did something splashy and fancy, a lot of your fans are going to balk at what you do because it's not going to feel real or, honest. What's your take on the whole DIY ethos?
I mean, we would definitely, like, for the first, I would definitely still consider ourselves a DIY band. Like, we do have, I still book all of our own shows. Like, we did go, we hired PR for this record just because I don't have the connections that someone that does, like Earsplit, like, Dave does an amazing job.
Amazing.
And, a very fair price for the amount of work that he's doing. And getting it in front of, probably tens of, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people that would have never, taken the time to, go and, see that thing, on the website and click on it and listen to it all. And, so I feel like that part is probably where we've, stepped it up. But as far as, we book our own shows, like we, I book shows for other bands that, like, that's kind of been my whole thing since I joined this band, is trying to get heavier bands to come to Minneapolis. Because when I joined, my first tour with Wanderer was with like a post-rock band.
Gotcha.
And then
what was the band?
Infinite Me. They're from Minneapolis. I don't really know what their status is at the moment, but gotcha. They were active for a long time. They toured pretty well. They're kind of like Pianos Become the Teeth.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that name at least pops into my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but Infinite Me, that's a killer name for a band. So I think anyway.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, just like we've just kind of done it and tried to do it as much as we could, like regardless of the circumstances. Right. And now it's kind of becoming like we have to pick and choose shows more often and stuff because just like being around I've been in the band for 6 years, coming up on 7. So like, we've made a lot of connections. We played a lot of shows, and it's like we got to pick and choose which ones we get offered, and we got to choose that. But I don't know. It all comes from like us wanting to control everything about like give the the presentation that we want to present. Like with this album, like we had it recorded 3 years ago, I think.
Wow,
almost
really?
3 years ago.
It sounds so fresh. Like it's like about now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I think. There's been very few musical projects I've been involved in where, or actually no, we started writing these songs 3 years ago, and then recorded them 2 years ago, and now like are finally able to come out because the pandemic screwed everything up. Yeah, and I'm glad that we did wait because there's no way that I would have wanted to release it, just get it out there during the pandemic and then just have it sit for like a year before we could even play shows on it.
Yeah.
We are as much as care and practice and time and whatever we put into the recordings, we are definitely a live band. Like it comes across so much more, and like you get exactly what we're going for when you see us live. I've never, but like I kind of know that because I was a fan of the band before I joined.
Yeah.
I probably saw them 6 or 7 times before I actually started filling in for them, and then I joined when the guitarist left.
Gotcha.
Like
Gotcha.
I don't really have it anymore, but at the beginning I had that perspective of being a fan.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
knowing what I wanted to hear from the band and then getting to implement that.
Yeah.
Which that was super interesting. I think that has kind of changed. That definitely changed the direction of where we were going, because that earlier stuff was much more like Norma Jean, The Chariot, kind of influenced.
Yeah.
In that area. And then I've kind of, like I started getting all the guys in the band into bands like Converge and Black Breath.
I love Converge, man.
Yeah. I mean, Converge has been, probably my most consistent, like, favorite band for probably the last 10 years.
Nice.
And, I grew up on progressive metal. Like I kind of went backwards. Normally it's like you get into punk and then hardcore and metalcore and then some kind of metalcore hybrid and then metal and then prog metal, tech metal, just kind of more progressively, technical,
yes,
and more progressive as it goes along. Like
you get snobbier.
I started off with the snobby bits, one of my first shows was Opeth, and then I saw and like Mastodon and Gojira and Meshuggah, and like I still love all those bands.
Yeah, but
then I started getting into more, straight up punk, straight up hardcore. And then I just kind of gave up. Like there's a whole thing with a lot of those, like a lot of the fans of like extreme metal, that hate breakdowns or hate groovy stuff or like hate parts of music that feel good. And I gave up on hating that stuff because it feels way too good to play, and it's just fun. Like I don't, I don't want to, obviously like, our lyrics and like the actual sound of the music isn't terribly fun, but like, like you got to be inside of the whole culture. You got to understand what it is to have that be fun. Like there is like an element of, kind of like ridiculousness, sort of like when we go into, some, halftime breakdown, just ridiculously heavy thing. It is kind of funny. Like it's not a serious thing.
Well, it's shocking because what you do isn't that. So when you jump into that, people go like, oh, one, it's groovy, and they don't want to admit it's groovy, right? Because they the idea of like being hardcore and for real, right? I'm in the middle of this thing, man. You're fucking it up. This totally sucks. But deep down inside, man, everybody wants to bounce. I learned that from a producer years ago. Actually, the guy who produced Pearl Jam, and he's like, man, Rob, the bottom line is whether you're playing in 4 or in 7, whatever you're doing, if it doesn't bounce, it doesn't work. Yeah. And again, that's coming from the pop, the pop cycle mindset, but he sold 20 million records, you know what I mean?
That's kind of the basis of where people come from. No one starts out their life listening to Dying Fetus, like no one comes out of the womb listening to like Antichrist Siege Machine and like all like super heavy black death
suffocation, whatever.
Like the no mosh, no core, no fun, like it's just straight up blast beats and like thrash riffs the entire time. There's definitely a time and a place for that kind of stuff, and I love bands that do that, but that's not most people's first introduction to music. They're introduced to it by their parents or, just hearing it on the radio, which is most of the time it's dancey, it's fun, it's got some kind of groove to it. And that I don't know, like I don't have scientific backing for this, but I'm pretty sure that kind of feel, like where you can dance to it, you can get your body involved, like it makes you kind of move involuntarily. Is like kind of the basis of like human enjoyment of music. I
mean, it's without being really cheesy, the heart of rock and roll, dude. When you're talking these, the drums, there's a reason that pulse matters. It just does. You recognize it. It's inherent. It's part of your psyche. You don't know why it's happening to you right now, but you look across the room and everybody's doing the little head bounce. It's because it freaking grooves. And top to bottom, this is why, and I don't want to get off target here, but like Ginger, right?
Yeah.
4 years ago, Ginger releases Pisces, and all of a sudden everybody discovers them, right?
Mhm.
Oh my God, Tatiana can growl like a guy. Nobody believes it's real.
Yeah.
But if you listen to early Ginger, that was the grooviest, sexiest thing in the world.
Mhm.
And in their last album, and I just saw them 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
I hated. I left the show. It was just 10 million notes. It was all dissonant. And don't get me wrong, it has its place, but not for me anymore. And I don't want to say I've grown out of them. They've grown out of me.
Yeah.
They're not for me anymore, and that it breaks my heart. But I'm right with you, Brent, because I'm a drummer, so I went from the noodly stuff because when you're a kid, you're like, oh my God, listen to that. I wonder how hard that is to play, and you kind of figure it out, and then you feel like you've got chops, and you gain your skills because you're listening to all this really tough stuff. But nowadays, I don't want to thrash, but I want to be pushed to the limits, So you guys, and I talked to Anta Ritual the other day. I'm listening to a lot of super intense stuff, and I can tell the difference. And, you know what I mean? And really, again, going back to the very first thing I said to you, I love what Wanderer does because it somehow it makes me want to find a new descriptive, a new superlative, because I'm tired of saying this is really awesome, or this is really heavy, or this is really brutal. But you're all the things, man. And I hear so much heavy stuff. So it's fascinating. It's well produced. It's well written. It's mixed well. It's badass. So, we're here to talk about the new record. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you saying that. That's I feel like that's been finding something to actually fully describe it, in like an elevator pitch kind of thing has been like the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
Since we started the band, obviously some random person at the bar or whatever asks you if you're in a band, and they have, or like a family member or something like that, and they have zero context for like being in like rock bands at all.
Right.
And I'm just like, yeah, we're a metal band, but then like taking it, like if someone expresses that they know what they're talking about, like they actually if I say metal and they're like, well, what kind, like what
right
kind, then you can take it a step further, but then that makes it that much harder to describe what we actually are, because we do have Dan, the vocalist, is he's like a trained bass player. He has a degree in bass, but he's a better guitarist than I am, but he's the vocalist. And he has like a lot more like metal background. Like I have, I went to art school in high school and stuff like that. But then Mono has never taken a drum lesson in his life.
He's really good too. I pay attention. He's really good.
Yeah. We've been telling him there's been a couple of the newer songs we've been writing are like, play more notes. Like you're good enough to play more notes. Please play more notes.
Yeah. I can't think of who he reminds me of. I'm always hesitant. The more I do this, the more hesitant I am to talk about influences, because I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, you sound like this guy. Are you copying this guy? You know what I mean?
There's, that's the whole idea of an influence. I have no problem saying that, we're influenced by, Converge and Mastodon, like bands like that, because we do sound like them. It's I take a lot of personal influence. I learned all those songs growing up, and though learning those songs gives you those chops, and then it just kind of comes out when you want to do your own thing.
Yeah, no, I get you. And that's probably what it is. He sounds like Bran.
Yeah,
and there's nothing wrong with sounding like Bran.
Oh no.
Although I will say, and I am a drummer snob. Okay. I like, and this is just me saying, I like the simplicity. What I don't like about Mastodon is Bran's overdrumming, which he does all the time, and he's famous for it. He knows he does it. He jokes about it all the time.
Uh-huh.
But he over drums. I saw them play live a few years ago when they did a tour with Gojira. Yeah. And just like the show the other day, we left halfway through because I was just tired of hearing drum fills every 5 seconds. It just like the groove went away. You know what I mean? Yeah. What I love about your guy is that, he's just in the pocket. So if you play something in 7, he's there. And he might put something tasty in, but the song doesn't lose that pulse, which is, giant. Liberation from a Brutalist Existence. That's the name of the album.
Yep.
Correct? Okay. I've listened to it from top to bottom. I don't know if I necessarily have a favorite track because I just like the general feel of it. And I love how it just flows. It's really fast. It pops, right? Yep. You got these 2.5 minute, the 56 second song, you get all this stuff. And I'm wondering, this is a really deep reach, but are you familiar with a band called Heavy Vegetable?
No.
Okay. So they're late 80s, early 90s punk snark band. Imagine Ween, but heavy.
Okay. Into that.
It's insane, and you guys remind me of Heavy Vegetable. That means they have joke titles, The Undersea Adventures of Aqua Kitty. I mean, all these weird titles.
Yeah.
But this idea of this sort of punky 2 to 3 minute, ditties coming in, hitting you hard with these ditties and these ideas. It's badass. And when I heard your record, I was like, holy shit, this is freaking Heavy Vegetable turned up 12 notches. So if there's anything I would say, maybe write that down. If somebody says, who are you? What do you guys sound like? Say, we sound like Heavy Vegetable turned up 12 notches, or mosquitoes can't penetrate the skin of this band. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? But I wanted to ask this question. With this new album, I know it's been out a few months, but have there been naysayers? Because I think your type of material is pretty polarizing, and of course, naysayers can't help but be naysayers.
Yeah.
So how does the band deal with negative press?
There honestly, there really hasn't been, like, as far as I've seen, which, like, most of it's been, I'm kind of the contact for the band, like the leader kind of person,
right?
As far as like business stuff goes, and as far as I saw, like there, most of the reviews and most of the press and whatnot was very positive.
Cool.
Cool. Which, I was, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know who was going to hear it, or I just, I feel like there's so much material and so many bands like sending, getting their stuff sent to all these different reviewers and stuff, that I feel like I don't really see, besides big bands, I haven't really seen like a whole lot of negative press. It just seems like people, at least, from, this experience, that most of the people that reviewed our stuff and, published it, publicly,
right,
were, fans of this style already, or, like adjacent styles or whatever, and, gave it a try based on, like the, what we were, the description of what we were supposed to sound like, and they seemed to like it. The negative stuff within those, like, mostly positive reviews was just kind of like weird nitpicky stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
which is weird and nitpicky.
Yeah, and we got a review in Decibel, which was like a bucket list check. Like that, I don't subscribe anymore, but I subscribed while I was in high school through college, and it's, probably the highest quality, like, metal and extreme music publication in North America.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And like, it was we got an 8 out of 10, which is, if I was a kid reading that, and that's enough to make me interested alone. And then, like, he name dropped a bunch of bands and whatever. But then one of his things that he didn't like was that the vocals sounded like they should be in a band like Pissgrave or Grave Miasma.
Really?
Which is, like, he didn't say that was bad. It just said they sounded more like extreme death metal, which was the whole idea.
Yeah.
So I was just like, so you're just saying this to, like, not be totally praiseful, I guess.
You know what it is, dude? No, I'm telling you, Brent, I think what it is this is a guy who really wants to be seen as a connector in the biz. I'm telling you, that guy wants to drop those names so he can say, look, I know who those bands are. I guarantee you that's what it is.
I mean, yeah, I'll do that. That's, you got to show where you're at, I guess. But
yeah.
But I mean, I'll still take it. Like if even if that's put, written in like a slightly negative way, or it's supposed to be a slight,
right.
To our sound or whatever, the right person reading that is going to be like, oh, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and that's exactly, I think, what makes it so rad. It goes back to the fingerprint, right? You guys are a fist, man. You guys sound like yourselves, only yourselves. You bringing your energy into Wanderer made Wanderer today. It's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
So let me sort of detail out why I asked that question.
Yeah.
Because have you ever seen the movie American History X?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you know how certain underground subcultures, and I'm not talking about white supremacy, okay, necessarily, but just the idea, right. But political groups, fringe groups, whatever you want to call it, they tend to take certain sounds, certain bands, certain music in under their wing and say, "This is ours. We own this." And I don't mean in the sense of like we now own Wanderer as much as they align themselves with the sound of Wanderer, and because they misinterpret what Wanderer is about, right? And so I'm wondering, because heavy music, harsh music gets misinterpreted all the time. People can't understand the lyrics. They're not interested enough to look up what the band is saying. Has that ever occurred to you where you found out that your music is being subjugated by somebody else, and that they're not paying attention to what your message is? They're trying to get their message to be your message by sort of claiming you as their surrogate band.
Not specifically. No, not really that I can think of.
Okay, cool.
From like a just like an outside of, I guess, within like music itself. It sort of, I feel like there's a lot of, like some people will think that, like they like us because of like a certain metal leanings or something like that. So to them, we're a metal band.
Yeah.
Then to like, some other kid that hears the, the two-step riff that we bring in, we're a hardcore band to that kid.
Yeah.
Like, and just that kind of like, I guess it's not really a miscommunication. It's just like what people, I don't know, like people really, they find, the one thing that means the most to them out of really anything, like it could be any music, any art, whatever. And if it's good enough or it means enough to them, that's what they're going to identify with it.
Right. No, that makes sense. I worry, and I know this sounds so stupid to even use the word worry, but I do. I worry about bands that I personally like being taken away from me because somebody aligns them with a value that the band isn't speaking towards.
Yeah.
You're out there a lot on social media finally, and probably thanks to Earsplit, and the work you're doing, your DIY stuff. And obviously you've been playing a lot of gigs. Like you said, you're active. Clutch, the famous band, Neil Fallon has said for years that, we've earned our audience over 30 years, one show, one person at a time.
Yep.
But guys like me, man, we're discovering you now, finally. And when I hear your music, I wonder what's the national or maybe even international temperature around the band like yours? Are people coming out of the woodwork now, and are you starting to find some, attention and some gravity?
Yeah. I mean, we've, like I said, like we've toured, all around the country. We unfortunately haven't been international. Like we've never been to Canada, which, a lot of our peers have at this point, which is kind of disappointing. But, like now that the borders supposedly going to be opening back up soon, that, that's, hopefully at least playing, like Toronto, going through, that area just to, skip going around Lake Erie and whatnot. Because that just, instead of driving 8 hours or, from Detroit to Buffalo, you can just go straight across.
Right.
But it's definitely like internationally, like we've definitely, we've been friends. Like I've personally been friends with a couple bands from the UK for a while, but then just this album cycle, like, getting our stuff out there, like we were featured on a bunch of different podcasts and like different review sites and whatnot from the UK and Europe specifically, like UK most of, like for some reason, I don't know. I think I don't know a ton of the band, a ton of underground bands from the UK, but I feel like they're for a while, and we might be late to this trend, but like there were and probably still are a lot of bands that do kind of sound like us in like kind of mid, like not northern United Kingdom, like not quite like Scotland or whatever, but like, north of London, like that
Manchester.
That whole section of the country seems to be, there's a lot of people that really seem to like, there's a lot of people that, specifically seek out stuff like us. Yeah. And then they all seem to really like it. So that was really encouraging. Like we've, I don't know how long it's going to take for, like a DIY approach or something like that to, getting over there. But, hopefully I don't necessarily want to have to do that myself. International travel is stressful enough, especially not with like organizing gear and all the shows and all, so hopefully we don't have to do it by ourselves. And there's someone out there that, that likes us enough to, get us some guarantees to fly us out there kind of thing. Yeah. That's, all we really need is just to get out there, and then we'll sell merch and play for door deals. That's really all we need is just to get out there, and then we'll, take it on ourselves to, impress people enough to get them to give us our money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the nice part is though, man, is we live in a world now where a band like you can get on a festival, can get into a scene that, people are paying attention to. There's so many opportunities for great festivals. You don't have to be a Woodstock level band to get in a festival anymore, right? You don't have to be Blink 182. Right. Yeah. And so I say this because I don't know if you know this, but if you don't, please do this. Please do what I'm about to say. Wacken has a thing going on right now. And I found out about this actually through Asher Media, which is another promo company. And John was mentioning yesterday that Wacken is actually doing almost like a battle of the bands, like a contest where they're taking submissions. They're looking for an American band. They're only American. Really? They're looking for somebody to come and represent America, and it just has to be, Wacken friendly, right? But I mean, it doesn't have to be freaking power metal, right? It doesn't have to be Anvil. It could be a thrash or or what you guys do. So I mean, please look into that, because I think you guys completely fit the bill. You're professional, you're practiced, you're rehearsed really well. You've got killer songs. You got an absolute boatload of energy. And you got just as good a shot as any of these other bands that have a little more time in service. So, I mean, and it's Wacken, right? And that one moment. So, I mean, if you're self-managing, then you got to take those steps, because nowadays, Brent, nobody really is paying attention. I mean, don't get me wrong. YouTube is important and all these, social media outlets, but you've got to get somewhere on a bill with 35 other bands, so you at least have a shot of 2,000-3,000 people seeing you.
Yep.
You've got to do it. And I hope you'll take my advice.
That's very, very exciting. Like I didn't know that they were doing anything like that.
They are right now. Like I think the submission date is like it ends tonight or tomorrow or something. I mean, so go look it up. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's a band out of Scotland called Frontierer. Are you familiar with them?
Yep. I listened to their album a couple weeks ago.
Oh my God. That is
crazy.
Madness. That is madness. And Chad, their singer, lives right in the middle of the United States.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So that is exactly the kind of band that once these borders open up, I mean, you could do a UK tour with them and absolutely dual crush the stage. Because you guys are rad, they're rad, and you're completely different, but you're in the same sort of general energy vein, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. I can see that they're, the different sonics, but like same kind of idea behind it. Yeah.
Well, but look, Man, before I let you go, the album is killer. I love it. I mean, it's full of such good energy. You've got great videos online. Like some of your live performance stuff is really fascinating. My last question for you is pretty simple.
Mhm.
Where does it all go from here? You know, where do you personally want it to go next? I mean, I imagine that's in lockstep with the band, but you know, what's the logical next step for you and the guys?
I mean, we're right now we are beginning to book a kind of like late spring, early summer type tour. We're trying to go to the West Coast because that's been a while since we've been out there, and it takes so long to get out there that it's you know, like you really have to take your time. You know, you can't do it in a week unless you want to drive 16 hours every day.
Yeah.
And you know, like we're hopefully going to be, you know, coming out there in like the, you know, probably March, April, May area, somewhere in there.
I'll be there.
Yeah, and you know, like we've, you know, trying to hit the places we haven't played, and then, you know, hopefully internationally, and then, you know, as far as like new music and stuff, like we have, I think we have 4 or 5 new songs that are, I think we're going to be hopefully going to be recording before the end of the year, just to, you know, get them recorded.
Nice.
Because we've, you know, like I said, I think we wrote the songs for this record like 2.5 to 3 years ago. And then that, you know, we recorded it and then had to wait a year and whatever. So like just preemptively, you know, just like we have this new music that, you know, has, you know, come out with it, you know, that we've, you know, had, you know, that's unrecorded, unreleased. So hopefully that can be, you know, something to show, you know, say, you know, Intelladon has been the label that put it out has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Working with us, they gave us a great deal on, you know, he basically, like, Augustine is the guy that runs it, and he basically was like, yeah, I like this enough that I'm just, you know, he basically just like fronted us a bunch of money and we just have to, you know, give it back to him.
Yeah.
He doesn't own anything. We it's still our own thing. He just liked it enough to want it, to have it on vinyl, to support, which is, you know, like, that's huge. Yeah, that, you know, that people like that make, you know, the industry go round. You know, that's how it starts. So, you know, hopefully there's some sort of you know, hopefully there's some sort of, you know, upcoming, you know, kind of thing where we can keep pushing and, you know, keep playing bigger shows and, you know, get on bigger tour. You know, like right now we're looking at touring as much as possible. Just because, you know, that's one thing that I think we play really well live, and you know, getting out in front of people is the biggest thing that you can possibly do to get people to, you know, like your music more. And, you know, if they already like it, like really become a true, you know, fan for life kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully there's, you know, more opportunities for that. And then, you know, just kind of all coming together, and, you know, we just want to do it at as a high a level as we could possibly do it. And, you know, if that eventually means that we can, you know, tour and make money doing it, that's amazing. But, you know, if that's not actually what happens, like, I want, you know, my whole goal, I guess, personally, is to have, you know, our music like affect people the way that other people's music has affected me growing up and being, you know, like a fan of this type of music. And, you know, like having that kind of, you know, longevity in just your, like, I guess your not your soul, that's kind of cheesy, but like, you know, having some kind of, you know, legacy.
Everything.
You know, like I don't think I'd be like, I guess like the concept of like the second death has been like really important to me, subconsciously mostly, that, like, you know, leaving a mark on the world kind of thing is, that's why I play music. Like, I just want to affect other people in like positive ways and get them to, you know, do positive things with their life. Like, you know, other people's music, you know, I wanted to do what they were doing because it made me feel better, so I want to make someone else feel better, kind of thing. You know, that whole, you know, kind of cycle, like people like, I guess Prince or, something like that. People will be listening to his music forever.
Yeah.
So like, that concept of like the second death being when the last time that someone like thinks about you.
Yeah.
That will literally never happen for him.
Yeah, but I don't think, on a smaller scale, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I have to say this, on a smaller scale for you, it actually, you're the same. Yeah, you don't have, there's not a lot of zeros behind the numbers of people that know who you guys are. But the reality is you've created something. And again, the internet, who knows, right? Who knows in 500 years what, if it'll exist or what it will look like or anything, but you've put something into the electronic ether that for the moment is infinite. And that is awesome. I mean, if I asked you right now to tell me how your great grandfather sounded, you couldn't tell me. There's no recording of him. Yeah. And there is this with you. There's just this moment right now. If there's only this moment, that's badass that your great grandchildren can say that's what grandpa sounded like. That alone is badass because they connect with you, and that brings humanity all the closer together. So, dude, what you're saying, without getting too much, philosophical here, I love what you're doing. You guys are absolutely killing it. And I can't wait to do more for you and with you. And please, you don't have to promise me this right now, but I'm just going to put my hand up, my little flag. And I want to say, when you have a new piece of material, if you would consider me as a way to honor you, I'd love to put you on my site as a song band feature of the week sort of thing, because I love what you guys do. And I would love to be an insider with you guys. So let me know.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, that sounds perfect to me. I'm always down to, keep working with people that want to work with us. That's what makes our whole thing worth it. Like getting to work with cool people that, understand what we're doing and where we're coming from.
Yeah. So. Well, you're worth it to me. So thank you for being here today, Brent, and say hey to the guys and survive the winter. Okay.
Absolutely.